Advat, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Wednesday evening program for ISV. We'll start today with some kirtan. What do you Prame?
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hari Hari Bol. So, dear devotees, we will begin today with the Mangalacharan prayers. For those of us who have taken shelter or are initiated, please say Guru Pranam mantra in your mind, followed by Srila Prabhupada mantra, and then we can start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakati Vedanta Swamiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Dharne. Feel free to unmute yourself and you can say with me, or we can all say it together as you like. Agyantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuronmritamyena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah. Prabhu, are you able to hear me properly?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you. We can hear.
Okay. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Pranasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrvacha Kapasidu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So dear devotees, today we will go through the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse number 17. That is the topic for today. I'll read the Sanskrit. If you want to repeat, you can repeat after me. I'll go through it twice. So if you don't want to unmute yourself, that's still probably okay. Pitaham asya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara rikasami jurevacha. Pitaham asya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara rikasami jurevacha. Pita, father, aham, I, us, of this, jagata, universe, mata, mother, dhata, supporter, pitamaha, grandfather, vedyam, what is to be known, pavitram, that which purifies, omkara, the syllable om, rika, the Rig Veda, sama, the Sama Veda, yajur, the Yajur Veda, ev, certainly, cha, and. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. Translation goes like this: I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajur Vedas. Purport: the entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different
Hare
activities.
Krishna Prabhuji, can we mute the Hare Krishna mantra? We couldn't
We
hear
cannot
this.
hear it.
Yeah. Can we mute the Hare Krishna mantra? Yeah.
Sure. Are you able to hear now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Mataji. Okay. So I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajur Vedas. The entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's margin energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as such as our father, mother, grandfather, creator, etc. But actually they are parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father, mother, etc. are nothing but Krishna. In this word, the word dhata means creator. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother, and grandfather are also Krishna. Actually, any living entity being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. All the Vedas therefore aim only towards Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step towards understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify a constitutional position is especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and as such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om, called Pranav, is a transcendental sound vibration, is also Krishna. And because in all the hymns of the four Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, the Pranav or Omkar is very prominent, it is to be understood to be Krishna. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. So the reason that I chose this verse was, it does represent Krishna's unique position. It also represents the various aspects of how this universe moves around. It also talks about how the jivas should go about doing their lives. And it also talks about the knowledge, the various Vedas part of it. But the primary the important reason was the syllable Om. And today, while we look into the other aspects of this verse, we'll also go into the Om aspect of things, of how does it actually gel into the spiritual science, how it fits into the Vedic system, and how it also fits into Krishna consciousness. So with that as a background, let me go on to the corrective verses. But before we go ahead and do that, let me just also tell you one other thing, that this is not a run-of-the-mill lecture where I have no verses or memorized verses. I am just a beginner, and I hardly know anything about the Shastra. But here and there, I've caught some things by the mercy of Vaishnavas. So before much ado, I do want to offer my apologies at the very outset that I'll be doing a lot of reading for two reasons. One, obviously, I'm not that knowledgeable, but the other reason is I want to pass on things as it is. So there's hardly any adulteration when you do read. Obviously, it's not the most exciting of things, but at least the information is pure. So I would also appreciate if you would like to participate in the reading, and we can go around and take parts. And then also, please feel free to stop me at any point of time and raise any points, concerns, any words of wisdom or advice, or any questions that you may have. So with that, I would like to go on to the first of these. Are you able to see my screen? So we'll go into the Pitaham part. So Pita, as we know, is father, right? And Aham is I. So Krishna is saying that I am the father, or rather, all fathers is me too, as Srila Prabhupada translates over here, that everyone is but coming from Prakriti, and therefore it is Krishna only. They are parts and parcels of Krishna. So father is a very unique position in Jiva's life, especially as an embodied soul. That is where the origin happens, and or rather the beginning of the whole process, right? Even though in the physical world, we tend to see things as it appears, but really there are three parts of the world, right? There is the physical world, Bhuta, there's this Adhyaptic world, and then there is another world, which is the spiritual world. A lot of spirituality actually deals with the Adhyaptic part. The objective, of course, is the spirituality, but or the spiritual world. And a lot of people tend to stay in the physical. So spirituality is from both edges, from the starting point of the physical, where the physical and the Adhyaptic or the astral world, as Srila Prabhupada says, borders, versus where astral world borders the spiritual world. And because of this expanse, spirituality is dealt with differently at different places. So depending on what part, two parts a person or a yogi or a seeker is trying to bridge, they seek different versions. And that is why you have so many versions and so many styles of yoga and spirituality that is practiced in the world, including religion, right? Although religion takes a very high, lofty goal of trying to bridge the bhautik directly to the spiritual, jumping over the Adhyaptic. There's barely any Adhyaptic in the religion, but spirituality goes through it as a science and goes to the astral world. But within the astral world itself, Krishna consciousness at the very end of it. And that's why it's very difficult to understand, and it's the easiest to do because you don't have to apply your brains. But brains get applied implicitly rather than explicitly using it as a vehicle to advance. It is used implicitly because it starts with faith. So with that as a background, let me just go back to the as you can see, a father and son is there. So So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 14:14, Sarvas yonishu konteya murteya sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahadayonir aham bij pradapita. So bij prada, that means he is the seed-giving father. So he is a father who actually provides a seed, because if the father doesn't provide a seed, then there's no father. So he's just an entity. So translation should be understood that in all species alive was son of Kunti and made possible birth in his material nature and a seed-giving father. So in this verse, it is clearly explained that Krishna is the original father of all living entities. The living entities are combination of material nature and the spiritual nature. And why is that mentioned? Because as a jiva, as a conditioned living entity, that's the part that is implicit over here. We are embodied, and therefore there are layers of Maya on top of us, right? Buddhi, mana, indriya, all of those, the physical body, all of them are combined there. So such living entity is seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even the highest, where Brahma is situated. So everywhere there are living entities. The purport of that material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation, according to their past deeds. So Krishna has claimed himself to the seed-giving father. That means he is the father of all fathers. So definitely the fact that is stated over here, that he is his pitaham, is the father, is obviously true, because he is the father that originates other fathers too, like Lord Brahma, all the Prajapatis, and everyone. Another verse that is connected to this is this verse, which is also Bhagavad Gita 7:10. It says, Bijam mam sarvbhutanam vidipart sanatanam buddhir buddhi matamasmi tejas tejasvinamam. O son of Pratha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intellectual intelligence and the promise of all powerful men. So Srila Prabhupada says here, Bija means seed. Krishna is the seed of everything. There are various living entities, birds, beasts, men, and other things. And there are 84 lakh, 84 lakh yonia, species of life. Some of them are moving and some of them are inert. But in all cases, the seed of the life is always Krishna. So in both these verses, Krishna is trying to express the fact that he is the seed of all existences. Now, one may contemplate why there are two different verses that say kind of same thing. If you notice, they're not exactly the same thing. One is that he is the father who gives seed, and the other is saying he is the seed of all existences. So by virtue of being a seed of all existences, he is in a way a father, because from him things come, and father by definition, connotation is that it is the object from which the subjects come out. But whether you take the father as the seed, or whether you just take him as a father, he is still the originator or the creator. So that is one. And then another aspect is in Brahma Samhita, it is mentioned how Krishna actually creates, especially in the material world, right? Mahavishnu is lying in the causal ocean, and by his glance, by his very glance, he impregnates the material world. But how does he do that? So these 7, 8, 10, 9, 10 verses kind of talk about that, in how he consorts with his chit potency, and then Ramadevi carries those seeds into the halo, which is the variegated form where Rudra is formed, and the Rudra actually consorts with Maya Devi, and that is how the Shiva Shakti concept comes into picture. So really, there are many fathers and forefathers that we had, but that's from physical world, right? But from an astral world, if you look at it, really Shiva and Shakti are our parents. But if you look at the spiritual aspect of things, then Narayan alone is the father, and from him Prakriti comes, and then Prakriti serves as the mother. So many classes of parents, many classes of fathers and mothers, and Narayan is the origin of all of them. Of course, Krishna is the origin of Narayan too, but for now, that is the way. So Brahma Samhita describes how Ramadevi is carrying these seeds, because it is not appropriate, or it's not okay for Narayan to be directly consorting with Maya Devi because of the material aspect that Maya Devi deals with, and how Narayan is aloof of all of these things. But he still has to do some action there, some leela has to happen, because without that, we'll not be able to come into this material world, and that impregnation is the basis of how this thing happens. So Brahma Samhita talks about that. I'll not go into that for today. So we'll talk about another aspect which is called the Mata and Dhata. So Mata is mother, as we know, and Dhata is a supporter, Adhisthata, or the Dhata is a very, it's a used term in both Hindi and Sanskrit. And but Srila Prabhupada is over here translated as, in this verse, the word Dhata means creator. Now one might say that if Krishna is already expressed as the father, which is basically the origin of all creator, the creator of all creator, Sarv Karan Karnam, why does Krishna say Dhata again when father is also expressing the same thing? There are two aspects to answer that. One, it is very possible, like very many animal species have that concept where the father and the male and female intercourse, and then after that the father kind of leaves the mother with the kids to be born, and then the mother takes care of all the kids and brings them up. In fact, in certain species, the male would actually even go and kill the babies. Cats are very famous for that, when I've seen that happen. So the fact that the Dhata is expressed over is that not only am I the beach-giving father, but I also sustain it. So in that concept, this creator expresses the fact that he is also going to continue the legacy and ensure that the purpose of life is successful by the mechanism of being a Dhata. So dhone wala, that is where the Dhata comes as a root. Okay, so with that as the word, let's investigate of Mata is, as we know. So this is SB 6942. Okay, yeah. So before going there, this particular verse, I think this has the setting of, yeah. This is where I think the demigods are harassed by Vritasur, and they start playing. Somewhere over in return for King Indra's. The demigods headed, so they were basically troubled by Vritasur, and he actually starts. The demigods start praying to Narayan, and in that course, they actually say this prayer, and this prayer is very crucial because it contains various types of creator, and these, I mean, I don't know if, I'm sure they are very learned people over here in the assembly. So we know about the Upadan cause and the Nimitt cause, right? So those two we know, the efficient and the material cause. But here we find more causes of creation. So we'll just quickly go through the translation of what the prayer is, and then we'll figure out what are the four types of creator that are mentioned over here. O Lord, as the small sparks of a fire is being said by demigods, cannot possibly reform the actions of the whole fire. We sparks of your Lordship cannot inform you of the necessities of our lives. You're the complete whole. Therefore, of what do we need to inform you? You know everything because you are the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, the maintainer, you see the maintainer aspect, and the annihilator of the entire universal creation. You always engage in your pastimes, your spiritual and material energies, Chit and Maya potencies. For you, the controller, Isha, of the varied energies, Shakti, you exist within all living entities. So he's Antaryami within the cosmic manifestation, Brahmandam, and also beyond them, Parabrahman. You exist internally as Parabrahman and eternally as the ingredients of the material creation. Therefore, although manifested in various stages at different times and places, and in various bodies, you, the personality of Godhead, are the original cause of all causes. So that is one creator. Indeed, you are the original element, that's another creator. You are witness of all activities because you are greater as the sky. You're never touched by any of them. You are the witness of everything as Parabrahman and Paramatma. So that is the third creator. And there's a fourth one hidden over here. So let's go and just figure out which are those four creators. We'll go over here and so here are the first causes of creation, right? The material cause, and what the formal cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. Is it visible or is it too small?
Yes, Prabhu. It is visible.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Yes, it is visible, Prabhu.
Okay, sure, thank you. So the material cause, what does it mean? The substance from which something is created. For example, a kumar, right, is making a ghada. So he's taking some mud and then he's mixing it with water and kneading it and make things. So the material cause is that. It is called causa materialis, upadan karan. For example, marble, concrete, etc. when you're making a building. The formal cause. the shape that the creation is giving in the formal cause. Cause of formalis. What is this? For example, the architectural plan, right? So that is also a cause of how something is getting created. The efficient cause. What is this? That which initiates the creation is the efficient cause. Means the karanam, you can say, or what is the root behind it, right? Someone will win as a PM, Prime Minister, but really maybe there is someone else, maybe his wife behind him. Behind every successful Prime Minister, there is a woman over there as a wife who's making sure. So cause the efficiencies, nimitta karan. For example, the skilled construction crew. And the final cause, the purpose for which it is created. So that purpose is also a creator, because without that purpose, no one would go around doing these things. So cause of finalis. For example, in this case, a worship could be the reason, right? So in this case, this verse that we just read, where demigods are praying to Narayana, troubled by Vritasur. What are the causes? So as Upadan cause, that is a material cause, he is the ingredients of the creation. He's giving the ingredients, right? For example, as we know that there are two types of creation, right? Brahmaji creates subsequently, and then Narayan creates the original elements, the building blocks. Then, so this is the Upadan cause. That is one. And then formal cause. So it is called Swar Rupain, Pradhan Rupain. All material forms emanate from his eternal, personal, spiritual form. So what is this? Is the translated over here as bioform is external ingredient. So external part also comes from Krishna. Then as Nimitta Yamana, so Nimitta cause, is efficient cause, his glance initiates the creation. So that is the third part. This is the one that I was missing. And as final cause, Earth Visheshana, he manifests the special necessity or purpose of every living entity. So what is our purpose? We want to be our own lords, and we want to live Earth Vishesha. So those are the four causes of creation, and they are all expressed over here through this verse that Krishna is the original for all of these actual creations that are there, whether it's material, formal, efficient, or final cause. So with that, let us go on to the next part, which is Pavitram. So what does Pavitram mean? That which purifies. Okay, so let's go investigate that. Really, Pavitram is purity, right? And it is expressed through various forms, whether it's art form or even through cleanliness or goodliness or godliness, or various aspects of things. So if we go and look at the word Pavitram, and it means sanctified, pure, the purifying agent. So we are interested in the purifying agent because it is mentioned there as a purifier. So if you look at this, and which actually I already had it open, ye etat samadhityeta pavitram paramam suchi sapuyatahar ahar mama gyan deepen darshayan. So what the translation goes like, he would like roundly recites the supreme knowledge, which is the most lucid and purifying, becomes purified day by day, for he reveals me to others with lamp of transcendental knowledge. So various aspects about this, but this is one of the closest I could find in terms of words of how something is purifying. And we say that if you take the spiritual names or holy name, they are purifying. But what is it that purifies over there? One, it is pure in itself. Two, it actually helps reveal to others the transcendental knowledge. Two, and the third thing is, it is a gradual process. It's not a one-day activity. Many people ask this question that, hey, what happens if Prayan Kale, the time of passing out of this body, if we actually take the Lord's name, like Ajamila, sorry, would that suffice? The answer is, you can theoretically, but practically it will not happen, because every activity is a result of some past action, and you're creating a new action based on the law of karma. And the same applies here too, that to be able to do something at any point of time, whether it is the point of death or even otherwise, we have to have done the right cause, the karma, for that to manifest. And in this case, it is being said that by giving the transcendental knowledge, it is purifying. And this is also given Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says, no one is dearer to him than one who actually spreads his name and his knowledge. So And we can see what is the setting for this. Where is this coming from? He loudly recites this knowledge. So if I go into this chapter 29, so this is the core part of the Bhakti Yoga. And in this, Uddhav and Krishna are talking. You can see we were thinking that the previously described spiritual practice based on detachment is too difficult, because between Uddhav and Krishna's discussions over here, Krishna has told him many things, and he's talked about Jnana Yoga just before that. And Uddhav just got not exactly clean board, but it was a bit too heavy for him. So in reply, so Uddhav asked for an easier method, and in reply, Lord Krishna gave brief instruction on devotional service. So it is while talking about this devotional service that Krishna actually goes into this aspect about how here Uddhav is asking, I fear this method of yoga is very difficult for one. So can you please help me with something easier? And Krishna over here answers. Sukdev Goswami says, this question was the most affectionate Uddhava, Lord Krishna, who takes the entire universe as his plaything, lovingly displays his all-attractive smile. And then he starts saying, yes, I shall describe to you the principles of devotion. So since this is your purifying, what is that knowledge? We'll quickly go through this these verses to understand what part of the knowledge, or what, because Krishna consciousness is so huge, right? What explicit part is Krishna referring here that he calls as purifying? So not many verses. I'll try to hurry it up. I am looking for volunteers. If someone please volunteer and read, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll just zip through it so that we can go on to the next part. So always remembering me, one should perform all his duties for me without being impetuous, means sudden. With mind intelligence offered to me, one should fix his mind in attraction to my devotional service. One should take shelter of holy places where my saintly devotees reside. And one should be guided by exemplary activities of my devotees. So I think this is a hint to the Pranipati and Prashnena Sevaya. Either alone or in public gatherings, with singing, dancing, and other exhibitions of royal opulence, one should arrange to celebrate those holy days, ceremonies, and festivals set aside especially for my worship. With a pure heart, one should see. So you see, one purity is already mentioned here. This is something that was not obvious in this verse. That was one other reason why I went into the background for it. So with a pure heart, one should see me. So there's an implicit purity that is necessary as an ingredient, and you can call it the material upadan karan. So this is one of the ingredients that actually helps build this purifying knowledge force. One should see me, the supreme soul, within all beings, and also within oneself, to be both unblemished by anything material and also present everywhere. So this is leading with a pure heart and the ability to see everything sama at the very least. That is what gives you unblemished. Unblemished means without any tarnish. So just like the omnipresent sky. Oh, brilliant Uddhava, one who thus views all living entities with the idea that I am present in each one of them, and who by taking shelter of this divine knowledge offers due respect to everyone, is considered actually wise. Such a man sees equally the Brahmana and the outcast. So this is the famous Bhagavad Gita verse, right? For him who constantly meditates upon my presence within all persons. So now Krishna is going ahead and saying, not just seeing, you also have to meditate on that fact. The bad tendencies of rivalry, envy, abusiveness, along with false ego, are quickly destroyed. So here the Nathanivritti part is happening. Disregarding the ridicule of one's companions. So here is the test of Maya that comes into picture whenever someone advances in yoga. Krishna is always testing. That is why this is called material jail and an examination center. One should give up the bodily conception at its accompanying embarrassment. One should offer obeisances before all, even the dogs, outcast, cows, and asses, falling flat on the ground like a rod. So here's one question that probably comes up. Should we really offer like a dandavat to the dogs and the outcasts, cows, and asses? I mean, my understanding is that this is a mental thing. It basically means being lower than the blade of grass, as Sistastakam Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Essentially what it means is, it's like a nama. You see the Lord in everyone, and therefore you obviously being humble, bow down, and that position of namaste or nama, I am humbling myself, is what is being expressed here. Anyway, let's go on. Until one fully develops the ability to see me within all living being, one must continue. So that is the vidhi. Then, by such transcendental knowledge of the all-pervading personality of Godhead, one is able to see the absolute truth everywhere. Indeed, I consider this process using one's mind, word, and bodily functions, mana, vacha, and kaya, for realizing me within all living beings to be the best possible method of spiritual enlightenment. And why does Krishna call it best possible way instead of japa and other things that we do? Two reasons. One, obviously, is not specific to the golden age of Kali Yuga, but more important than that is it is actually for a typical embodied soul. And not everyone is able to come to Krishna consciousness, because as it is given in Bhagavatam, that to be able to chant the holy names, someone must have done or graduated through all the yogas in the previous life. So one must have exhausted the spiritual means with the maya, with the words and the body at the very least, and mind to some extent, or great extent, as the cause is the cause before they can come to it. So anyway, with that defense, let's go on. My dear Uddha, because I have personally established this process of devotional service unto me is transcendental and free for any material motivation. Certainly, a devotee never suffers from the slightest loss. So with that, I think we can just quickly jump onto this. It does give some protection, insurances. An ordinary person cries and things like that. So this supreme intelligence of the intelligent. Thus, I have related to you both in brief and detail a complete survey of the science of absolute truth. Even for the demigod, this is very difficult. So here comes the crux, which is said, he who loudly recites this supreme knowledge, firstly over here, one who liberally disseminates this knowledge among my devotees is the bestower of the absolute truth, and to him I give my very own self. So herein lies the key of why it is purifying. Because if you have a pure heart, verse number 12, and you meditate on it, then if you actually disseminate this knowledge to devotees too, then Krishna gives himself. And when Krishna gives himself, then obviously, as you know, Krishna being mathematically speaking infinite, when it gets added to any finite or infinitesimal spark of fire, then that fire power becomes supremely potent. So this is the key to why it is purifying. He who loudly recites supreme knowledge, which is most lucid and purifying. So this is the key to why something becomes purifying. It's not because we are meditating. It's not because we are actually seeing Krishna, or we are trying to see Krishna everywhere that it becomes purifying. It's because when we disseminate this knowledge and try to help the Lord's cause of actually taking everyone back home, back to Godhead, that Krishna just cannot stop himself. And he gives himself to that person and to all the other people who are getting it. So that is the root reason why this is purified. So we went and investigated the purifying aspect. Let us go on to the next part. Close this. So the other part over here in that original verse was Rig, Sam, Yajur, Evacha. So I am also the Rig, Sam, and Yajur Vedas. So let's see why Krishna mentions this and how he mentions them. So picture speaks 1,000 words. So we know there are 4 Vedas and Krishna only mentions 3 here. So logical question is, why does he mention only 3? But for some more visuals. So here is the Patra for Rig Veda. And I think it says, Dasata ye Prati Sakhya of Sonakacharya, grammar of the Rig Veda. So from 1665, so was translated. Here's the Yajur Veda, here's the Sam Veda, and there's the Athar Veda. So Athar Veda, as you can see, is conspicuously missing here. It is said that Athar Veda talks about, well, each of these Vedas really firstly are a collection of various kinds of books like Aryanakas, Samhitas, Brahmanas, all of those kind of books. And they all deal with different things. Someone talks with hymns, some talks with prose, so those kind of things, right? Well, it so happens that Rig Veda is talking about rituals, and Yajur Veda is prose. So while it talks about these rituals, it is given explanation of things that happens, right? And Rig Veda has a lot of hymns to the demigods, Agni, Varun, all of those things. And Atharva is missing, but Sam Veda is called a book of songs. And just by, if you just apply simple logic, this is most soothing or pleasing to hear. It starts with Agni's prayers and goes all the way to the Brahman, the all-pervading concept. So out of all of these 3 Vedas at least, it takes you to the highest, or rather the first step towards the spiritual world. So that's why Samved Krishna says also that I am of the Vedas and the Samveda, right? Vedanam Sama Vedo Asmi in 1022. So that is the reason that he says, because Samaveda is being a songbook, it actually is very soothing, pleasing, and it obviously is taking to what Krishna really wants us to take, which is back home, back to God, right? So without the absolute, just being the demigods, then that's where we'll go. And then further, also, Krishna is saying over here in Bhagavad Gita 10:35, Brihat Sam Tatha Samanam. So what does it mean? Of the Samveda songs, I am the Brihat Sam. So why is he saying this? Because out of the Samveda also it has been explained by the Lord, but among all the Veda is the Samveda. So that's previous verse, right? And see how it goes sequentially. 970 is talking about the three Vedas. Then 1022 graduates on to saying out of them is the Samveda. Then he's saying out of all of them, the Chandas over there, I am the Brihat Sam. What does it mean? The Sam Veda is rich with beautiful songs played by various demigods. One of those songs is Brihat Sam. It is an exquisite melody and it's sung at midnight. So there is something exquisite about it. And then Krishna, as you know, right, he always takes the pinnacle of everything, like he says, I'm the taste of water and shine. So he always is in the supreme position. Although he's all pervaded, he's also by Chinta Veda Ved, not everywhere. And that is the supreme position of Krishna. So he's just trying to show how he's supremely supreme. Anyway, we couldn't possibly end this topic or subtopic without talking about the famous verse, which is how Krishna sees himself as Vedas, and that also proves why he says that he is the three Vedas. So I'll just read it out. Sarvasya chaham nadisannivishto matta smatargyanam aponam cha vedascha sarvarameva vedyo veda veddev chaham. So I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. I am all the Vedas, and I am to be known. So this is the key to the assertion by Krishna why he is saying he is the Vedas, because Vedas take back to him. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So it is mentioned he is worshipped not only as the impersonal Brahman, the one that is all pervading, but also as a localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. Because Vedas come from Brahma, from Gayatri, which comes the foot of Krishna, right? So ultimately, source is Krishna, but he's also identified by Vedas as well, just like he's identified by Paramatma. And it is mentioned the Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and go back home, back to Godhead. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna's incarnation as Vyasdev is a compiler of Vedanta Sutra. The commentation of Vedanta Sutra by Vyasdev in Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. So therefore, it completes the whole circle to say why the giver of knowledge in the form of Vedas is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So we talked about the various aspects of Vedas, but let's come down to the million-dollar question of why Atharva Veda, the fourth Veda, is not mentioned here. As I was mentioning, all of these three Vedas are, I won't say liberational, but it is elevational in nature. Why? Because they actually take you to some extent up, depending on whether you go all the way to the Brahman aspect or you go to the demigods, whatever hymns or yagas or sacrifices you do. But Atharva Veda is not containing that elevational aspect. It is the book of how to deal daily life, tantra, ritual, not rituals, spells, magical spells, and those kind of things are mentioned there. It is also alleged, I didn't find any basis within just Krishna consciousness, but elsewhere I read that it is not compiled by Vedas himself. It's coming from other rishis, and since it talked about Atharvan, which is how to lead life, but Vedas kind of relented into accepting it as a Veda. So that probably is the reason why these three Vedas which came originally and the other one which came from other rishis was probably assimilated but not mentioned over here. But that is why this has a very unique position. Okay, so with that, I think we can stop this part. I'll stop here if anyone has any question or any points to raise before we go on to the next section. No? Okay, let me go on to the next section. So I'll share my screen. So here comes the Omkar part. So we talked about all of them, right? Pitam we talked about, Mata Dhata we talked about, Pavitram we talked about, Harik Samijurved we talked about. Let's talk about the core part, the Omkar part, which is the reason why I got hung on this particular verse. So Omkar, as we know, Om is very sacred and very integral or intricate part of the Vedas. But today we'll also be finding out the bridge between Om and Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we go on to the next verse. Yeah. So in this BG 7.8, where Krishna is mentioning Rasoham Apsu Konteya and the taste of water, which you talked about, light of sun and moon, he mentions Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. So if there's a mantra like Om Namah Shivaya, right? So Shiva is an entity. Shiva is also Lord. Shiva is a Isha. He is one of the three Trinity Devi Devtas, not Mahadevas, and he is ruling this entire universe. He's a very special unique position. He is Veva of Jivas. But why in that mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, why would Krishna say, and the Om part, not the Shiva part, for example, right? Let's take another one, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So leaving the Om part out, right? Nama is obviously you're humbling yourself, bowing down. So doing Namaskar. Bhagavate. So Bhagavan, as we know, is by Parasharmani's definition, it is full of 6 aspects: all Aishwarya, all renunciation, all wealth, opulence, all of those things. And Bhagavate Vasudeva. What does Vasudeva mean? Of course, we understand Vasudeva as incarnation of Krishna, but Vasudeva is the son of Vasu. And when something qualifies in Sanskrit to with a belongingness, then we put a extra A at the second letter, and therefore in Srila Prabhupada's mantra, it's called Saraswati Devi because he belongs to Saraswati, and therefore Srila Prabhupada's mantra is called Namaste Saraswati Devi. And similarly, Krishna is as Vasudev, is coming from or belongs to Vasudev. So that's one connotation. But another one is that Krishna, Vasudev comes from the word Vasra. Vasra means where someone resides. Like Ramchandraji was given Vana Vasa. He was staying in the Vasa, in the Vana forest, and he went for 14 years. So this Vas concept is basically reflected over there. So Krishna's Vas, where is Krishna's Vas? For typical entities in this material world, Krishna's Vas is in their heart. So he is serving as the Paramatma. So Bhagavan a feature, Paramatma feature, but when you mention them, you automatically associate them to Om. And why do you associate to Om? Because Om is the combining aspect. It is the string. It is the string on which all the pearls are hanging, all the Vedic mantras. Even they be as great as the Bhagavan Vasudeva itself, or they be other demigods like Om Agniyaya Namaha, Om Bhaskaraya Namaha, Om Varnaya Namaha. Right? So all of these mantras of various demigods, it's all various entities strung on the string of Om. So that is what is being mentioned over here, that he is the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I'm running short of time. So in the next verse in 8:11, Krishna says, Yad Aksharam Ved Vido Vadanti. So what does it mean? People who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, who are great sages in the rounds, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now explain to you briefly about the process. So Krishna has explained the process. But the idea over here is that by uttering Omkara, those who are learned the Vedas, they actually enter into Brahman. Why Omkar getting into Brahman and why not Goloka? We'll understand, I think, as we go on. If we run short of time, then we can talk about it. Okay. So here is a supportive text that is coming from Krishna, and it's 7:23. Antavante phalam tesham. So what it means is men of small intelligence worship. So different people did worship different entities. Those who worship the demigods go to para-demigods, but my devotees are ultimately reached by supreme planet. So this is the explanation of the prior verse of why when people utter Omkara, they enter into Brahman, because Omkara is directly a representation of the Lord. And therefore, when people are uttering Omkara, they actually go to the spiritual world. So that is the explanation. That's why I brought that first back. Okay. Then in 8:13, Krishna is saying, Om iti ekaksharam brahma. So after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks the supreme personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the supreme planets. So same concept over here. Om, if someone chants or recites, and then we've seen that famous photograph of the yogi leaving, the soul leaving the yogi's body. Okay, and then this is 10:25. So in 10:25, Krishna is mentioning, I am the transcendental Om in all the vibrations. So of all the transcendental vibrations, he is the Om. Firstly, there are many kinds of vibrations. There are material vibrations, there are spiritual vibrations. One may argue that they are all sounds, and sound travels through a medium, and medium is the air, and therefore, how can you call it spiritual? It is not where, the answer to that is that not where something is actually vibrating. It is the root of where it is originally coming from. What is the nimitta cause, and what is the purpose? So a vibration with an intention of actually harming someone, for example, a gunshot, is obviously not spiritual, right? But same gunshot may be given as a salute to Paramgati Prapt soldier, becomes elevational in nature because it is in honor, right? It is still material though, but there are transcendental vibrations. It is mentioned of all sacrifices, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama is the purest representation. So that is why Omkar also represents Krishna, and therefore Krishna says, of all the vibrations, I'm the transcendental Om. Now, question is, why does he say Om? I will go into that a little later. Then the famous verses from chapter 17, there's a flurry of verses over here from 23 to 27, where in this chapter, Krishna is mentioning about the divisions of faith, how something is Rasik, Satvik, and Tamsik, right? And over here, before this verse, Krishna has mentioned about various things, sacrifices, penances, food, all of those things done in Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. And he says that Sattva is the best. But why does he come to this part? The reason is that Krishna is saying just being in Sattvic doesn't help because it still keeps you in this world. And Krishna has only one objective. He's seeing the eye of the bird, just like Arjuna was seeing when he was asked to shoot the arrow, and his master asked him, what are you seeing? And he said, I'm seeing the eye. He hits directly where it really matters. So, Om Tat Sad Iti Nirdesho Brahmanas Trivida Smrita Brahmanas Ten Vedascha Yagyascha Vihita Pura. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. So, why are they used? The three symbolic words were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of Vedas. So here they just mentioned the fact that they're used, and why is they getting used? We'll go into that. Here's an example of where Srila Prabhupada himself uses. This is the preface for Srimad Bhagavatam. At the very end, he's saying, on the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a transcendental creation meant for bringing about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. Wow, so many phrases, and especially this one. Such transcendental literature, even though irregularly composed, is heard, signed, accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Om Tat Sat. It's like the the geometrical theorems when you say at the very end QED. That's it, no more. Like the judge says, right? Case over. As Vesika Maharaj very often says, case over. So, but Om Tat Sat over here is not just saying case over only. Of it comes at the end, but it is basically saying that this is supreme. So anyway, let's go on to the next verse over there, 1724. So here is the reason why Om Tat Sat I uttered. Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performance of sacrifices, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations begin always with Om to attain the supreme. Here is the cause of why Om is uttered, because the objective is liberation in nature. If the objective is not liberational, everything else is a waste of time. End of story. So that is why the Om is uttered. Now, So in this particular verse, Om is being tied to the feet of Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The lotus feet of Vishnu, the supreme devotional platform. Without desiring fruitive results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifices, penance, and charity with the word Tata. So this is the second part of the Om Tat Sat. The purpose of such transcendental activity is to get free from material entanglement. To be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gains. So this is the process. You can say this is the abhidheya. So in a way, this was, I don't know if you will call this as a samman, but for sure, that is the abhidheya of how to act in a detached manner and then be able to still continue with activity and be transferred ultimately to spiritual kingdom, back home, back to Godhead. And there's the sat aspect of things. This is the verse, next verse, 26-27. Sadbhave sadbhavuchya sad etat prayujyate prasate karmani tatha sat shabda parthujyate. So what is it talking about? The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice and is indicated by the word sat. So sat, very curiously, and this is just a pun, this is as an acronym. Sat stands for supreme, absolute truth. And if you take an acronym for that, that again becomes Sat. So there's no difference between the acronym of English, just the funny side of things, and what Sat really means. Anyway, the performer of such sacrifice is also called Sat, as also the work of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which true to the absolute nature are performed to please the Supreme Person or Son of Pratha. So Sat, Vishnu, Tat means, Om is Vishnu, Tat is the abhidheya, the means, and Sat is what is the objective. So we can say is the prayodhana. And one thing to note over here is the way this is, the style in which this translation is mentioned with Srila Prabhupada is very close to the Brahma Arpanam. Anyway, we'll not go to that verse. I think we're running short of time. But the Brahma Arpanam verse, where it has been mentioned that the sacrifice, the ladle, the fire, the hotas, the people, the priests, they are all Brahman, because from Brahman to Brahman, via Brahman, when someone dedicates themselves to Brahman, then basically they are all Brahman. So it is kind of that is being mentioned. Another aspect to note about this Om Tat Sat aspect is why Om and Sat. Tat I can understand being separate because it's a means. But why does Krishna or even Vedas have this concept of Om and Sat both? If you notice, Om is the impersonal aspect of God, or the Lord, which is spread everywhere. So one dimension. And Sat is across time. So there are two different aspects, right? One is a space dimension, the other is a time dimension. And both are represented by Om and the Sat, and therefore they are fully comprehensive, Purnam, complete. And that is how Krishna is manifest himself. He is aloof, as well as he is fully or perfectly perfect or completely whole, however you want to qualify it, or perfectly complete. But he is Purnam, and in all aspects he is Purnam, whether in this world, at this point of time, at this space. So both space and time are represented by this Om, Tat, Sat. In fact, Om and Sat, and Tat is the vidhi of how to reach the absolute. Okay, let's go back with that. So we just talked about the Om part, and we talked about the way it is being expressed in Bhagavad Gita. Now we look at other scriptures. So let me close this and open up the another one. Let's see how Om is being dealt with in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai. Sorry, I'll breeze through this because I'm running short of time. So first thing, and this is very typical of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes straight to the point, more than even Krishna. So look at this, and Krishna Goswami is saying, Sarvashraya Ishvarera Pranava Udesha Tattvamasi Vakyahaya Vedera Ekadesha. It is the purpose of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to present Pranav. Pranav is another name for Omkara, as a reservoir of all Vedic knowledge. The words Tattvamasi are only a partial explanation of Vedic knowledge. And why does he say that? We'll talk about this towards the end. But basically, Tattvamasi means you're the same spiritual identity. And this is where the difference of opinion between impersonalist and the personalist. For them, Tattvamasi is thou art that, you are that. Whereas here in Vaishnava, we are transmitting it as you're the same spiritual identity, but you're not that. You're a part of that. Okay, next one. Pranava Mahavakyataha Kari Achadana Mahavakyakari Tattvamashrapstapana. Pranav Omkara is the Mahavakya, Mahamantra in the Vedas. Sankaracharya's followers cover this to stress without authority the mantra Tattvamasi. So if you notice the flow of things that has been there, Om has been expressed as the overwhelming, not entity, I would say start with the word concept for lack of a better term in Vedas. And this is where the impersonalists are running away from it, and they're expressing other aspects, which are also true, but they are not full, Purnam concept of the Vedas. So Sankaracharya's followers cover this to stress the authority, the mantra Tattvamasi. So they've taken a smaller aspect and then said this. Reading the purport quickly, the Mayavadi philosophers stress the statement Tattvamasi, Soham, etc., but do not stress the real Mahamantra Pranav Omkara. Therefore, because they misrepresent Vedic knowledge, they are the greatest offenders to lotus feet of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says Mayavadi, Krishna, Aparadhi. Mayavadi philosophers are the greatest offenders to Lord Krishna. I will skip this verse and go on to next one. So next one says, Madhya 2594, Pranavera yehi artha gayatrite sahi haya. Sahi artha chatushokita vivariya kiya. So what does it mean? The meaning of the sound, vibration, Omkar is present in the Gayatri Mantra. The same is elaborately explained in the 4 shlokas of Srimad Bhagavata, known as Chatushloki. So firstly, Om, and then it is there in the Gayatri. Where does Gayatri come from? Krishna's flute. It comes from Krishna's flute into the heart of Brahmaji, right? And that is where the Chatushloki Bhagavatam is mentioned. And then after that, we'll skip the Mangala. Whatever was spoken as Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma in these 4 verses Srimad Bhagavatam was also explained to Narad by Lord Brahma. So then it comes down to Lord Narad Muni. And then whatever Lord Brahma told Narad Muni was again explained by Narad Muni to Vyasdev, and Vyasdev later considered these instructions in his mind. Srila Vyasdev considered that whatever he received from Narad Muni as an explanation of Omkara, he would elaborately explain in the book Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on Brahma Sutra. So essentially the formulas of Vedas, the Brahma Sutras, or the Vedanta Sutras, they are also popularly called, is the Omkara that comes originally from Krishna's flute as a Gayatri. So it's a big cycle over, or rather not cycle, it's a chain link, a single link list that ends with taking someone back as a doubly linked list, back to Omkara, back to Krishna. So we can end this section over here. But just with one observation that for every part and subpart, Krishna has only one focus, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is only one. Rather, Krishna has only one focus to inculcate Omkara or his divine aspect into everything. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has 2 aspects of things. He not only stresses what Krishna is stressing, of course, he's Krishna, so there is no doubt about it, but he's also differentiating by what can go wrong. So Krishna is telling you what should be right, and Chaitanya was saying, here's right, and here's the not right, here's the wrong. So don't do that. So with that, I think I will jump on to the other part, and this is the mention of Omkara in TLC, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So how is this being mentioned over here? Some big proses over here, I'll try to skip through them. The principal word in the Vedas, Pranava Omkara, is a sound representation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Omkara should be considered a supreme sound. But Sankaracharya has falsely preached that the word Tattvamasi is the supreme vibration. Omkara is the reservoir of all the energies of the Supreme Lord. Shankara is wrong in maintaining that Tattvamasi is the supreme vibration of the Vedas. For Tattvamasi is only a secondary vibration. Tattvamasi suggests only a partial representation of the Vedas. And then it is mentioned the verses that you already read about Omkara. Similarly, Omkara is given importance in the Atharva Veda and the Mandukya Upanishad. In the Bhagavad Sandarbha, Omkara is given as most consequential sound representation of the Supreme Lord. The sound representation of the name of the Lord is as good as the Supreme Lord himself, and therefore there is not much difference between Om and Lord. By vibrating such sounds as Omkara or Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One can be delivered from the contamination of this material world, because such vibrations of transcendental sound can deliver a conditioned soul. They are known as Taraka mantras. So what is Tarak? Tarne wala means one who takes across. That's what they say, right? That this body is to be used as a boat to take us across the ocean of nescience, and your guru is the captain of that boat. So let loose, bow down to your guru, one who can remove the guru, or the one who removes the darkness. That's how the term guru comes from, right? So the mantra is a tarak mantra. It tars you, it takes you across. Okay, next. This is the mention of how the Mayavadi philosophers are converted. I think this is in Varanasi with Prakashananda Saraswati. In this way, Lord Chaitanya condemned attempts at direct interpretation of Vedanta Sutra, and all the sannyasis present were struck with wonder by his explanation. After hearing the direct interpretation, so that means the Mukhya vritti, as it is called, right? There are two types of vrittis, Mukhya and Gauna. Gauna means indirect, and Mukhya means the direct, main one, right? One of the sannyasis immediately declared, "O Sripad Chaitanya, whatever you explain in your condemnation of the indirect interpretation of Omkar is not at all a useless argument. Still, only a fortunate person can accept your interpretation as the right one." Look at that. Still, actually, every one of us knows that the interpretations given by Sankara are all artificial, imaginary. But because we belong to this sect, we took it for granted that this interpretation was the right one. We shall be very glad to hear from you the further expressions of Vedanta Sutra. So I think the point to note over here is that he's saying, because we belong to this sect, which shows that they are bhiru. Bhiru means that they are fearful, they are afraid. And herein comes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's unique USP, right? Unique selling proposition. When you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you become fearless. And we can very well see over here that even though these Varanasi Mayavadis understood that what Shankara had given were artificial and imaginary, they did not have the guts to come out and either contemplate, speculate, or try to research what the truth was. So this is the power of Omkara coming out from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's go to one more aspect. Pranava or Omkara is the divine substance of all the Vedas. Omkara is further explained in the Gayatri Mantra. In the Bhagavatam, there are 4 verses written in this connection, and Chaturshloki. I think this part we already kind of covered, so let me jump to the next one after this. But this is verse to number 22 chapter. Now this is chapter number 25. So what is 25 talking about? The Pranava. Pranava Omkara is the chief sound vibration found in the Vedic hymns and is considered to be the sound form of the Supreme Lord. From Omkara, all Vedic hymns have emanated, and the word itself has also emanated from this Omkara sound. The vibration Tattvamasi, also found in Vedic hymns, is not the chief vibration, but is an expression of the constitutional position of the living entity. So it's a partial truth. It is truth, but Tattvamasi is a partial truth. Tattvamasi means that the living entity is a spiritual particle of the Supreme Spirit, but is not the chief motive of the Vedanta Sutra. The chief sound representation of Supreme is Omkara. Now we'll go on to TLC chapter 31. In the Brahma Samhita, a nice description of the sound of Krishna's flute is given. When Krishna began to play on his flute, the sound vibration entered into the ear of Brahma as the Vedic mantra Om. This Om is composed of 3 letters, not 2. Om is not it. The pronunciation for that is Om. In fact, the is like you can take your tongue up and the sound reverberates at the neck part. So anyway, I'm not an expert, but I just try to do that. So it describes the relationship with the Supreme Lord, activities by which we can achieve the highest perfection, and the actual position of love on the spiritual platform. So very conspicuously, again, 3 parts. The fact that everything is broken into 3 in the Vedic system, or understood or explained like that, is very prominent. Same over here, AUM. When the Vedic vibration of flute is expressed in the mouth of Brahma, it becomes Gayatri. So therefore, thus by influenced by the sound vibration of Krishna's flute, Brahma, the supreme creature and the first living entity in this material world, was initiated as a Brahmana. That Brahma was initiated by Brahmana, the flute of Krishna, is confirmed by Srila Goswami, Jiva Goswami. When Brahma was enlightened by the Gayatri mantra of Krishna's flute, he attained all Vedic knowledge. Acknowledging the benediction offered to him by Krishna, he became the supreme original master of all the living entities. Jagadguru, or Guru. Okay, and here is Brahma Samhita. which just talks about how the Gayatri emanated. So we can skip over this, but I think the important part over here is the flute part. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of twice-born, having been initiated by supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. And here is the path of perfection. Sorry, you have to open this page again, otherwise it will not go back to that fragment anchor. So Chrome has a problem. If you refresh the page, it doesn't. Anyways, what it says over here, the impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound Hare Krishna contains Om. So it's the first superlative aspect that is mentioned over here. So far, we thought we were being mentioned Hare Krishna same as Om, but it is saying Hare Krishna contains Om. Why? Because Om typically represents the impersonal, all-pervading aspect, because Hare Krishna represents the Bhagwan feature, which, as we know, is the when you get closer to the Lord. Whatever the case, the entire yoga system aims at concentration on Vishnu. So that is what is the whole purpose of whether one chants Om Hare Krishna. Ultimately, the objective, prayojan is Vishnu. From it's like we have democracy, right? And the democracy is of the people, by the people, for the people. Similarly, this is Vishnocracy. Why? Because the Vasudeva Kutumba, people who belong to Vishnu's family, are being are expressing themselves. So Om of Vishnu and Tat and Sat. So for Vishnu, so that is the Prayojan. So Sambandh is of Vishnu and for Vishnu, and the Avidya of Vishnu, for Vishnu, by Vishnu. So by is the mechanism. Similarly, the concept, right? Tantra, Mantra, Yantra. So what is the Yantra body? Yantru Rani Maraya. So the body is the mechanism, the machine with which you actually use the mantra to obtain a tantra. That means an objective, right? So that process to which these concepts go hand in hand. Similarly, we are just seeing this. So let's just finish this part and then we can go on. Yeah, we are done with this. So here are the other books that we read about, DLC and other thing. So I will get over this part. Please do stop me if you have a question. Otherwise, we'll jump on to next section. And now we are going to Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see what Srimad Bhagavatam says about Om. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. So in the introduction section for the first chapter, first canto, Srila Prabhupada is writing, Pranav Om or the Omkar in the Vedas is the primeval hymn. This transcendental sound is identical with the form of the Lord. All the Vedic hymns are based on the Pranav Omkara. Again, Tattvamasi, and has stress on the word, which is not primeval. Here is 4.8.54. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is the Dodakshar mantra, 12 syllable mantra. This mantra is chanted by Vaishnava devotees and it begins with the Pranava Omkar. There is an injunction that those who are not Brahmanas cannot pronounce the Pranav mantra. So then the question comes, how are we allowed to pronounce? Well, we don't technically pronounce Om, but we do, right? All our Guru mantras and all Bhagavatam starts with it. But Dhruv Maharaj was not a Kshatriya, was born a Kshatriya. He at once admitted before Narad Muni that as a Kshatriya, he was unable to accept Narad's instruction on renunciation and mental equilibrium, which are a concern of a Brahmana. Still, although not a Brahmana but a Kshatriya, Dhruva was allowed on the authority of Narada to pronounce the Pranav Omkara. So like they say, there are rules, injunction, and there are exceptions. And here's the exception. This is very significant. Especially in India, the caste Brahmanas object greatly when persons from other caste are trying to recite the Pranav mantra. But here is tacit proof. What is given over here? Tacit proof that if a person accepts the Vaishnava mantra, Vaishnava way of worshipping the deity, he is allowed to chant the Pranav mantra. Okay, we have very few minutes left. Okay, so here is, I think, Bharat Maharaj, and then it is being mentioned. So we talked, Srimad Bhagavatam gives more aspects about it. We talked about the injunction. Now let's talk about what are the accompaniments, right? So here's Bharat Maharaj. He's sitting down on the banks of the river Gandaki, and he begins to chant the mantra Omkara. Before that, he finishes his morning duties, evacuating, urinating, and bathing. So his one other thing that is being hinted over here is why we don't chant Omkara but Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because Omkara has certain rules around it, and Hare Krishna Mahamantra being Mahamantra, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy doesn't have any rules. Then another aspect. Let me please your lordship by chanting the Bij mantra Omkara. This is coming from 519.3. This is being expressed by, this is the island of Jambudip. It is mentioning, and I think there's some discussion over there. Anyway, why does it say over here Bij mantra? So far we heard of the term mantra. So if you look at it, these Bij mantras are seed mantras, and seed mantras are called seed mantras because they come from a seed, and the seed is a syllable. So one syllable mantras are called Bij mantras. And there are some non-one syllable mantras as well. But right now we're just talking about the ones that are very, the core ones. Lama, Vama, Rama, Yama, Hama, Om. And Om occurs two places, and they are corresponding to chakras in the body. And if you notice very conspicuously, A for Om is occurring at the Agya chakra, the third eye, right? But it is also the same Bij mantra at the Sahasra chakra, Sahasradhara. So both at the crown as well as the third eye, it is said, and both of them are liberational in nature. But whereas all of these other bija, which are also part of the Gayatri, somewhere I think they are part of the Gayatri, maybe Krim or the other ones are there. So both of them, they actually help liberational. But there is a difference between Om being uttered here and Om being uttered here. When Om is uttered at the third eye, at the Agya chakra, then it is actually Shiva Shakti Milana. Very wrongly, it is also called that it is done at the Sahasradhara. No, that is not true. So that is why this itself is liberational, because it takes you out of the into the causal part of the body. You know, there are multiple bodies, right? You have the soul, and then we have the arm, the causal body, and then the mana, buddhi, prana that make up the subtle body, right? And then sukshma sharir, and then the physical body, right? So with Om focused at the third eye, it will take us to the causal body. But if you want total liberation, then we focus at Sahasrara chakra, and therefore there are skulls that such are brooks, and the yogis Atma comes out, and then wherever they want to go, if they still have some desires, which is still possible, and they can go to some other planet or they get liberated. Anyways, these are the Bij mantras, and here is a collection that I found out about how they are at the various places, Sahasradhara, Om, and it is all united. So the really important part is which God or Lord is the presiding deity. So it is unition of all, and that is why it is the true representation of Om. The Om is chanted here, but this is the Shivan Shakti Milan, and then as you go down, you get other Devi Devtas coming in, Dakini, Rakini, and all of those. Anyway, so let's go on to next verse, 6.526 from Bhagavatam. And this talks about, I forgot what this was about. Oh, this is the, I remember. So this is what the scenario where, you know, Daksha, and he has, and then he has 100, he has these sons. And let's just go to chapter 5 quickly. So Prajapati Daksh, right? He has two sets of sons. One is Swalashvas, and the other is Haryashvas. And then these are 1,000, and they go away because they let Narad, and Narad Muni gave him the liberational aspect, and these came in, and then before Daksha curses Narad Muni, right? That you'll never be able to stay at one place. So as Narayan Saras, the second group of senses, performed penances, they murmured mantras beginning with Omkara, underwent a severe course of austerities. So this is a clear example of where Omkara is used to get liberational in nature. Then, interest of time, jumping on 6, 8, 10. So one must then chant the mantra of 6 syllables, Om Vishnave Nama. So this is the mention of how Om is part of the Narayana Kavacha. So one should place the syllable Om in his heart. So there is one place where the Om is in location. The syllable V on the top of the head, the syllable Sa between his eyebrows, and the syllable Na on his tuft of his hair, Shikha, and the syllable V between his eyes. The chant of the mantra then plays the syllable Na, and even yada yada yada, Srimad Bhagavatam, please pardon me. And then it comes out over here where it says, Ma, he should chant the mantra Ma Astray Fata. Fat is another bija, beginning from the east. In this way, all directions will be bound with the protective armor of this Narayana Kavacha. So in basically, Om is the core of Narayana Kavacha as well. Then this one is where Krishna is saying that I am the form of transcendental vibration Om, and Hare Krishna Rama, and I am the supreme absolute truth, Sata. Then in 7:15:31, my dear king is a sacred, in a sacred holy place of prayer. So this is how one should chant Om. So this is that thing given. And holy place of pilgrimage, so in the Tirtha, one should select a place in which to perform yoga. The place must be level, not too high, too low. There one should sit very comfortably, being steady and equipoised, keeping his body straight, and thus begin chanting the Vedic pranava. So this is the requirement of how to physically position yourself. Here's another one. This is 8.7.25, where it is being mentioned. Use the shelter of the syllable Om, which consists of 3-letter Om. I think this is the, this is where Lord Shiva drinks the poison. And I think 3 vrata is being mentioned, consisting of 3 parts, A, U, and M. So with that, we come on with the end of this section. We are almost at the end of the time. I ran short, but I'll try to squeeze in things. So this is continuation of the Bhagavatam. And actually, this is a very long one. Maybe we should just end over here. So we cannot, as a Vaishnava, especially coming in Srila Prabhupada's line, we cannot end without a fight. So let's just talk about some of the Mahavakyas. So these Mahavakyas are the so-called supreme vibrations that are popular in the impersonal line, and all impersonalists are taught that they should be ratoing this. These are the ones that they should be practicing and meditating on. So Tattvamasi, which obviously we know is the famous one, right? Thou art, that is what that thou art. It is being mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad 6.8.7 of the Samveda. And the way it is, these are bit book that exists, that is very actually smartly done. Each one of them is a part, so it's not expressed as it is, and therefore it has been derived, and therefore there is less debate that one can put. So very smartly done by Shankaracharya. Second, they are from each Vedas each. So this is from the Samveda, this is from the Yajur Veda, this is from the Rig Veda, this is from Atharvaveda. Third aspect is that they are, because they are taken apart, they can also be interpreted differently. For example, Madhvacharya has interpreted Tattvamasi as, if you look at the way it appears, I mean, it's a big shloka, but Sa Atma Tattvamasi. So you can take the A part from here out and put it as part of this and call it a Tattvamasi. And the moment you say a Tattvamasi, there you go. Shankaracharya's argument and entire imprecision goes for toss, because it says, oh, thou art not that, right? Thanks to Radhika Raman Prabhu to explain this part. I think, was it him? I think so. I forgot. Anyway, so then the other ones, the other Mahavakyas, Am Brahmasi, Pragyanam Brahma, and I am Atma Brahma. So all the 4 Mahavakyas are there, and these are being expressed as the core parts by Shankaracharya, and that is where the miss is. And so this is a visual. And ideally, I would have liked to go through this translation and the purport. We will run short of time, so we'll just end with the shloka and the translation only. It's a huge purport, but it contains everything almost that we talked about. And it's 7.28 from Adi Lila. Pranava se Mahavakya Vede Ranidana Ishvara Swarupa Pranava Sarva Vishwadhama. Pranav, the Omkar, say that Mahavakya, transcendental sound vibration, Veda of the Vedas, Nidana, basic principle, Ishvara Swarupa, direct representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pranava Omkar, Sarva Vishwa, all universes, Dhama is the reservoir. Translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Vedic sound vibration Omkara, the principal word in the Vedic literatures, is the basis of all Vedic vibrations. Therefore, one should accept Omkara as a sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of the cosmic manifestation. Om Tat Sat. But before I say Om Tat Sat and end, I do want to mention that there's a one verse that I missed, where just like the Om is expressed over here, there is one more Om where it says that A is Krishna and U is Radharani and M is the Jivas. So I'm missing that one, but anyway, we ran short of time. So I'll end over here. Dear devotees, please pardon my mistakes. There have been many. There would be many. And if anyone has any questions, I know we ran over time, but there's so much to cover and I was trying to squeeze things. Pardon for that. And
Hare Krishna, Vijaya Damodar Prabhu. This is Ashram Madhav Das.
Hare Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Prabhuji.
Dhanavad Pranam. Prabhuji, you went exhaustively to this Om aspect. Very nice, like, through Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam. I think you touched mostly the 11th chapter. I was just doing some research on the site. It looks like in 12th chapter also there is.
Yeah, there is. Actually, I skipped 2 sets of things on.
Yeah.
So I could get time, but yes, that is where
Yeah,
the.
Prabhuji, I mean, you covered a lot actually. Today in this brief 1.5 hour, covered a lot on that. Started.
I didn't know what was right and what was wrong. I am a poor soul, and I thought it is best if I give people Pacific Ocean, then they won't say that this river is not flowing properly. So I had evil intentions behind my scene. And Krishna being Bhavagar Janardhan would easily get it, But if you kind of bless me, then maybe I'll be able to go through, and Krishna might be closing his eyes.
You are already blessed, Prabhu, by you, Guru Maharaj, and by Krishna.
Yeah, it's the Guru Parampara which actually provides all the blessings. Prabhuji. So thanks everyone. Thanks for everyone who's watching, especially on YouTube. I think there are people who are watching. And thanks Mayank Prabhu and Sarika who joined here and stayed till the end. Really appreciate. Thank you. If there's any question, we could come down to the temple and we can talk more about it. And Ashram Mother Prabhu is over here, is a champion in all fields. So he would gladly answer all the questions.
Vijaya Damodar Prabhu ki jai.
समस्त भक्तगण की जय, वैष्णव गण की जय, गुरु महाराज की जय, गुरु परंपरा की जय, चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय, पंचतत्व की जय, राधा कृष्ण की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंद। हरि हरि बोल। वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्ण। वैष्णव महाराज और निराकुल माता की भी जय।
Yes, we'll end the session. Sure.